everybody, my name is Rachel and welcome to my weekly wrap-up of June 26, 2016, wherein I tell you about the boatload of disappointing books I read this past week, with one exception. I'm gonna jump straight into it because what's more fun than talking about books you didn't like that much? First, I DNF'd a book. I do DNF books. People have asked me about this in the past. I do, but it's rare, and I don't always talk about them, but sometimes I do. And this particular one I do want to mention because nobody mentions it. This book is Fire with Fire, the first in the Tales of the Terran Republic military science fiction series. I picked this up because the first 3 books in the series have been nominated for the Nebula Award, but nobody's talked about them. I'm not kidding. I've not heard anybody talk about these books or the author. Clearly, the members of SFWA must find something good about these books to nominate them 3 times in a row for the Nebula Awards. I now understand why I haven't heard people talk about it, because it's not the kind of military science fiction that I enjoy in my sphere of science fiction. It is very old-fashioned, traditional, stereotypical, white male-dominated military science fiction, and I DNF'd it at about page 70 because that's when the first woman appears, and she is immediately introduced as this like va-va-voom vixen. She's unbuttoning the top of her shirt to seduce our main character, who is like Bond, James Bond, down to the fact that the men introduce themselves with their last names first, like Kane, or Richard Kane, or whatever his name is. It wasn't badly written, but it was horrifically cliche. The dialogue, the action, it really felt like reading a James Bond book because our main character is this polymath genius who can do no wrong and is sent off to be a spy, and then the ladies fall all over him. What? But I really don't understand why this was nominated for a Nebula Award. I know I didn't finish the book, but reading other people's reviews on Goodreads makes me think I am not missing anything really stellar. My string of disappointments continues with the next 2 books that I'm going to talk about. Apex by Ramez Naam is the concluding book in his Nexus series, which is a neuroscience techno-thriller series about a man named Cade who with his group of friends creates the Nexus drug. It's the silver liquid you drink, it crosses the blood-brain barrier, and then it installs software in your brain. You can run apps in your brain. It has tremendous implications for human intelligence, the learning capacity and speed of children, but it is also weakened by that fatal flaw of all software that's ever been coded, which is there is no software that doesn't have a backdoor or doesn't have a security flaw. So you install this, you do amazing things, but your brain can now be hacked. The Nexus drug creates transhumans, which is the step before posthumans, and the series explores the conflict, the war between plain old humanity, transhumans, and then posthumans. And it's fascinating. It really deserves the term techno-thriller because it's very fast-paced, it's very intense, and it escalates the violence and the consequences throughout the first 2 books. Apex, however, was not very good. I didn't enjoy it much. I buddy read this with Tara, and we both agreed it was a very weak conclusion. It was a slog to get through. It's 600 pages long, significantly longer than the first 2 books, and it was bloated. There are too many words, and it just grinds the action to a halt and recycles endlessly through the same repetitious scenes and emotions and reactions and characters. Character growth grinds to a halt as well, and just nothing happens. It was so repetitious, and you lost that intensity. It's got that thriller style of writing where it has very short chapters and very short sentences and paragraphs, and it's like one more chapter. But it didn't work here because not much was going on, and it was so repetitious. I was very unhappy that there were dozens of point of view characters, and our main established cast is mostly neglected, and their character development also stops. It's just more battle scenes, more people dying, more people being mind controlled, just on and on and on. Yeah, I did not enjoy it very much. I would recommend the first 2 books if you're really interested in books that talk about neuroscience, because the ideas, the implications of what technology will do to the human body and human society are really interesting to think about. but the ending just crashed and burned. The other book that I was really disappointed in was The House of Shattered Wings by Aliette de Bodard. Sorry, Mark. I thought I was gonna enjoy this one when I was about halfway through it, and by the time I got done, I just wanted it to be done. It felt very thin. It failed to grip me, to compel me to keep reading. It just wasn't that interesting by the end. And the concept sounds cool. It's set in a post-war Paris where fallen angels have caused a devastating war, and then in the ruins of Paris they have these houses. Most of the houses are protected by the power of a fallen. They have immense magical properties associated with their bodies, and Silver Spires is the house that had been created by Morningstar, the most powerful of them all. He's been missing for 20 years and his successor Celine is trying to keep the house together, but they've been cursed. Something has cursed their house, and these dark shadows are creeping along and killing people. I thought the setting would be really awesome because Paris, fallen angels. But really it felt small, like we were on this little stage with just a spotlight mostly on the Notre Dame Cathedral where Silver Spires is. It just didn't feel big enough. It didn't feel like there were actually other people. When people weren't on the page, there was no one. I could imagine the walls of the set just being taken away and there being nothing there. I think this is supposed to be a very character-driven story, but once again, the characters were very paper thin. I didn't care for Madeline. She has this story that's supposed to make you really care about her, but I never really cared. Philip has the most interesting backstory because he's actually from somewhere else in the world. He gives you that glimpse into there are places other than Paris that are still out there, but he acted very repetitiously, like he didn't know what he wanted to do, and he kept backtracking all the time. So I was like, make up your mind, boy. These people are supposed to be very old, but they don't feel old. They feel like little mopey teenagers just being pissed off at each other or something. I didn't get it. I'm genuinely upset that this book was so disappointing because I want to love Aliette de Bodard's work. I have some friends who really enjoyed the book. It won the BSFA award not long ago, and I just don't think it was that good. I'm sorry. I feel like apologizing for not liking this book. Steadily moving on to books that I enjoyed more, we have Brasyl by Ian McDonald. I'm waiting for Wolf Moon to come out later this year, which is the next book after New Moon, and while I'm waiting I thought I would read some of McDonald's backlog because my library actually has some of his other books, like what? So Brasyl is one that I chose because I've heard it mentioned a lot. It comes up a lot, and I really like the Brazilian influences and culture in New Moon, and thought, well, hey, McDonald apparently has some interest in Brasyl, let me read more about that. This book was really hard to read because of the way it's written. It has massive passages of description, more description than action or dialogue, and the description is what I would call thick. It is dense. You have to parse it word by word. It's just written that way, but it also uses a lot of Portuguese terms. I tried to understand things based on context, like I would try to just read it and get it, and it didn't work so well, honestly. I enjoyed it because I really admired how difficult the writing must have been to write, but it really hid the action. You had to put so much brain power into understanding what the words were saying that you would miss those little bits of action actually embedded in the descriptive passages. So the plot is that three people from three different time periods in Brasyl, a woman in 2006, a priest, a Jesuit priest in the 1730s, and then an entrepreneur in the 2030s in Brasyl, all come across these illegal quantum computing activities and this like parallel universe conspiracy, which binds them all together. But the plot was not enough to shine above the description, if that makes sense. It was buried underneath this heap of descriptions of what Brasyl feels like and what the people are like. It's just, you get a great sense of the taste and the smell and the feel and the sounds of Brasyl and what it's like to live there and how apparently sexy, sensual, and hot it is, but not as much of the story. So I admired the book, and I really want to read more by McDonald, but it was really hard to read for such a short book and for a plot that I was really interested in. It really took me a while to get through it. The Book of Phoenix by Nnedi Okorafor was my favorite read of the week, no surprise there. It's a prequel story to Who Fears Death, which I haven't read, but I will be reading soon. I really want to get to it right away while the events of this book are fresh in my mind, because in a way this is like the origin story of the Great Book, which I suspect features heavily in Who Fears Death. It is about a woman named Phoenix. She is a science experiment in Tower 7. She's about 2 years old but has the appearance of a 40-year-old woman, and one day her best friend in Tower 7 kills himself in order to escape the atrocities being committed there against them. She realizes that her home is actually a prison, and she escapes with another man, and she learns what her abilities are. She can burn very, very hotly, and of course her name, Phoenix, is a hint as to what her power is. And they set off to destroy the other towers and free the people who are trapped within, people like themselves who have abilities and are being held against their will and experimented on and tortured and basically enslaved for science. It is filled with a lot of rage and the need for revenge, what's called justice. I really love how conflicted I was about Phoenix's character. She has many conflicting traits. She is young but old. She's naive and really only knows things about the world from reading books, but she goes out into the world and starts living. She has a really good reason to be mad and to want revenge and to want justice. At the same time, the way she goes about doing things is not always the best or not always the most merciful, and of course a lot of people die. Once again, her name, Phoenix, and the ideas of destruction and rebirth are key to this. I think it's also really speaking out, raging out against the ideas of slavery, of enslaving people because you think they are other. I really enjoyed this. I thought it was a great short story, and right now I seem to be all about shorter, self-contained stories that really keep me reading. This absolutely did that. The only reason I didn't quite give it 5 stars is that I didn't understand some of the context, clearly because I haven't read Who Fears Death. I felt like I was actually missing some connections that would have made the story richer and more interesting. It does have a connection to Okorafor, which I have read. That was fun to notice. Those are the things that I read this past week. My primary reads right now are Hild by Nicola Griffith. I swear I will finish this book in the next couple of days. I must finish it. It has to go back to the library. My audiobook is The Gene by Siddartha Mukherjee, which he is really well known for, The Emperor of All Maladies, his book about cancer. Because of my anxieties, I'm not going to read that book, but I think genetics is fascinating, and The Gene is a history of, an explanation of the gene and its discovery and its inner workings, and it's fascinating. I'm really loving this audiobook. And I have just started the new novella by Lois McMaster Bujold. This came out a couple of days ago, and it is called Penric and the Shaman, and it's the follow-up to Penric's Demon, which I loved. I really, really, really love that novella, so I have high hopes for this one so far. It's getting up to a good start. That's it from me this week. Let me know if you've read any of these or you want to, if you have any thoughts about them, and I will talk to you again soon. Bye.